Good morning, you're watching Rajya Sabha television and I'm Smriti Rastogi with Breakfast News. Our top focus this morning is India's intergovernmental consultations. We will get you all the details on that front. But before we begin the bulletin, a quick look at the top headlines. Cyclone Mora makes landfall in Bangladesh with winds up to 117 kilometers per hour. Hundreds of thousands evacuated. Odisha sounds alert in 4 districts. Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds informal talks with German Chancellor Angela Merkel, says Europe must play lead role in combating terrorism. Senior BJP leaders L.K. Advani, Murli Manohar Joshi and Uma Bharti to appear before special CBI court in Babri Masjid demolition case, court to frame charges. Chemists to go on countrywide strike. Protest is against stringent regulation on sale of medicines. And Rafael Nadal and Novak Djokovic advanced to the second round of French Open. Andy Murray to begin campaign today. Cyclone Mora has hit the Bangladesh coast. The cyclone packed winds of up to 117 kilometers per hour after authorities evacuated hundreds of thousands of people from low-lying coastal villages. The storm made landfall on the coast between Cox's Bazar and main port city of Chittagong. Up to 1 million people are being evacuated. The cyclone was formed after heavy rains in Sri Lanka caused floods and landslides that killed at least 180 people. In India, the Odisha government has sounded alert in 4 districts and has asked fishermen not to venture into the sea. State government held meetings of official review and preparedness. Collectors of Mayurbhanj, Balasore, Bhadrak and Jajpur have been alerted. Collectors of other districts have also been instructed to remain watchful in view of the cyclonic storm. The Met Department, however, said that the rain and thunder shower is likely to occur at several places in North Odisha districts and a few places over the southern parts of the state. Meanwhile, the Indian Meteorological Department on Monday announced that the conditions are favourable for the onset of southwest monsoon in Kerala by today. The IMD said that while South Kerala has been receiving widespread rains since early Monday, only few places have received rains in the northern parts. However, it is likely to improve today. The Mavelikara and Viacom each received 6 centimeters of rain. Kochi witnessed 5 centimeters rainfall. Thiruvananthapuram city, Minikoi and Pirmed each received 1 centimeter of rain. Rain and thunder showers are most likely to occur at most places in Kerala in next 5 days. Strong winds from westerly directions with speed occasionally exceeding 45 to 55 km per hour are likely off Kerala coast and over Lakshadweep. Meanwhile, the death toll in floods in Sri Lanka reached 180 with 104 people still missing in the island nation's worst torrential rains in 14 years. The floods have driven nearly 500,000 people out of their homes. The Indian Navy diving and medical teams have been deployed to assist Sri Lankan Navy operations in the flood-hit southwestern region. More rains are expected in the next 2 days as a depression in the east-central Bay of Bengal intensified into a cyclonic storm Mora that made landfall in Bangladesh. Meanwhile, following India's lead in sending out emergency relief to Sri Lanka, more have started pledging assistance to provide relief to the flood victims. The flooding is the worst since May 2003 when 250 people were killed and 10,000 homes destroyed after a similar powerful southwest monsoon.
දරුවන්ගෙත් මගෙත් තිබුණු සේරම සේතතම නැති වුණා අපට එන්දින් හොටින් නැහැ ගෙදර ඉන්දි කට්ටක්වත් අපිට නැතරමට සේරම විනාශ වෙලාම ගියා
පොඩි කඩයක් දාගෙන ජීවත් වුණේ ගේත් එක්ක කොහොම මහ පොළොට සමතලා වෙලා ගියා මනුස්සයට තංශභාගේ පුළුවන් තරම් ඉක්මනින් අපිට කොහේ හරි දෙන්න කඩලා දෙන්න කියලා මම මහත්තයාට ගියා හිටින්නේ.
On to more developments, at least 13 people died and dozens were injured after a severe thunderstorm swept through the Russian capital, Moscow. More than 50 people had sought medical help as Moscow was lashed with high winds, hail and torrential rains. Hundreds of trees were toppled and electrical cables damaged as meteorologists reported winds of up to 80 kilometers per hour. Investigators say that the victims were mostly killed by falling trees and various structures. Moscow City Community Services came out to the streets on Monday evening to remove uprooted trees debris from the city streets. The Russian Weather Service said that the wind speed reached 22 meters per second during the hurricane and that another storm could hit the capital overnight.
За 10 минут очень сильный ветер поднялся. Вот. И сразу повалилась елка. Елка свалила вон то дерево. Вот. Накрыла 3 машины, но, правда, не царапины, удачно. И все быстро кончилось. В течение 10 минут все произошло.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi held informal talks with German Chancellor Angela Merkel during the first leg of his four-nation tour. The two leaders discussed issues including international terrorism, trade cooperation and investment opportunities and Brexit, among others. Prime Minister Modi exhorted Europe to play a key role in the fight against terrorism. Prime Minister Modi will be accorded a ceremonial reception today. He will also hold the 4th India-Germany intergovernmental consultations along with Merkel.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived in Berlin on the first leg of his 6-day four-nation tour. On arrival, he tweeted both in English and German that his hope is for the visit to lead to beneficial outcomes and deepen India-Germany friendship. In his first engagement, the Prime Minister met German Chancellor Angela Merkel at her country retreat, which is the official state guest house. The two leaders held informal talks over a private dinner. Before the meeting, the Prime Minister signed the visitor's book. Later, the PM took to Twitter and said that he had a very good interaction with the German Chancellor.
The discussions covered bilateral agenda, how Germany can partner with India on India's important flagship programs, including skill development, the energy sector, environment, smart cities, digital India. There was appreciation of India's economic reform agenda, particularly the GST.
In an interview to a German newspaper, the Prime Minister had urged Europe to play a lead role in tackling the menace of terrorism. The issue came up during informal talks with Merkel.
There was discussion also on the issue of radicalization and terrorism, and each country's experience in dealing with this. And the recent events, terrorist events, were also mentioned in this context. They reviewed the Brexit, the future of the European Union, and Prime Minister reiterated the utmost value that India attaches to the European Union cohesiveness, which is a major factor of stability in global politics.
After Germany, the Prime Minister will move to Spain. This will be the first visit to the country by an Indian Prime Minister in almost 3 decades. He will call on King Philip VI and also hold talks with President Mariano Rajoy. Later, the Prime Minister will head to Russia for the 18th India-Russia Annual Summit. In the last leg of his tour, the Prime Minister will visit France from June 2 to 3. Akhilesh Suman's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
And for more on this, we will go across to our correspondent Akhilesh Suman, who is joining us on phone line. Akhilesh, yesterday informal talks were held between the two leaders with a major focus on combating international terrorism, with Prime Minister Modi asking Europe to take a lead. Give us more details on that front.
Yeah, Smriti, you see the present world context has changed after this COVID war has come into force. And you can understand that before Prime Minister was going to Germany, the German ambassador in Delhi, he called us and he briefed us about their views on OPOR. So you can understand that there is some sort of similarity that is emanating between India and Germany on the issue of OBOR, and no European countries can tolerate that any country is going to teach them how to make roads, how to make bridges, and how to construct infrastructure. They have been quite expert. But the way China is trying to monopolize the whole issue of infrastructure building in the whole of the Asia and also in Europe and connecting the Americas, I think no European country is going to understand this type of nuisance in the world. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Angela Merkel has spent quite a lot of time, and the 3 hours they were together at various occasions yesterday, and talks were very fruitful to my sources, as I have told. And I think that this is the best time that India and Germany are spending as far as international situation is concerned, because see, the whole reform of the United Nations Security Council is being hampered just because of the attitude of Chinese. So they had lots of talk about UN reforms also on this in this meeting. And today, when there will be formal talks, there will be more elaboration on this issue, how to go forward on the reform agenda, and also how to tackle the
Akhilesh,
terrorism that is also being hampered by Chinese intervention off and on.
Yeah, Akhilesh, for that reason, what will be the major agenda apart from terrorism, the formal talks which will happen between the two sides today at the intergovernmental meet? What will be the major agenda which the two sides will be formally discussing today?
In the last 3 years, Prime Minister Narendra Modi was trying to invite the foreign capital in India for Make in India projects, and also the whole skill development issues, and also this whole cleaning of rivers, and also renewable energy. So whatever India needs to modernize its whole, whole shape of the country, I think Germany is going to talk about it, and Germany is quite expert in all these areas. So there will be lots of talk about on these issues, and other than that, there will be lots of talk about economy, trade, and that Germany is our largest trading partner in Europe, and how to stabilize it and how to consolidate it further and increase it further. Because Germany, somehow Germany and other European nations were also a bit skeptical about internal situation of India. Sometimes this cow vigilante issues come up. Sometimes the situation of inter-caste rivalry come up. So I was talking to diplomats many a times, and they were telling that these are the issues that come up in the FDI. So I think Prime Minister Narendra Modi has assured Angela Merkel that these are the issues that is being tackled by our law and order machinery. We are quite serious about our FDI initiative, and it is going to take further elaboration in these talks today that will happen.
Thank you so much, Akhilesh, for joining us and giving us all those latest information from that meeting between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and German Chancellor Angela Merkel. And moving on, ahead of the GST rollout in July, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley has reiterated that the new GST bill will help the country to become a more tax-compliant society. Speaking at a seminar in Bangalore, Jaitley added that the new tax reform will simplify the process of filing indirect taxes and will act as a deterrent for evaders. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley also said that GST will broaden its revenue base and cut compliance costs for companies, and that the union of various indirect taxes under GST in one price will be a monumental taxation change and will bring greater accountability into the system. Jaitley was speaking after inauguration of the new campus of the National Academy of Customs, Indirect Taxes and Narcotics, which will train officers of Central Board of Excise and Customs, besides officers of VAT Department in the new GST regime.
It certainly will be a more efficient tax. And one of the important changes an efficient tax can bring about is that not only does it check evasion, it also helps in evolving India from becoming a more tax-compliant society.
With that, we will slip into a very short break. National, international and sports news on the other side. Stay with us. The sacred relics of Buddha were unearthed in Piprava in Uttar Pradesh. Buddhist monks from all over the world visit the National Museum to pay their respects. These charred bone fragments of Buddha are housed in the gold canopy gifted by the royal family of Thailand.
Ghata, one of the oldest and most unique percussion instruments of southern India. You can play it not only with your fingers, but palms, wrists and heels as well. You'll be surprised, but the air inside the ghatam reverberates, creating the musical notes. 5 elements of nature, earth, water, air, fire and space make up the composition of this beautiful musical piece, which has found an apt place in most of the ancient books.
Welcome back. BJP leaders L.K. Advani, Murli Manohar Joshi and Uma Bharti will appear before a special CBI court in Lucknow today for framing of charges in the Babri Masjid demolition case. Besides them, BJP leader Vinay Katiyar, VHP's Vishnu Hari Dalmia and a one-time firebrand Hindutva preacher Sadhvi Ritambara have been asked to present themselves before the court in person. While directing the accused to present themselves in person, the judge has said no application for adjournment or exemption from personal appearance shall be entertained. The court is hearing 2 separate cases relating to the demolition of the Babri Masjid. The Supreme Court on April 9 ordered prosecution of Advani, Joshi, Bharti and other accused for criminal conspiracy in the politically sensitive case. It had also ordered day-to-day trial to be concluded in 2 years. It had transferred the case against Advani, Joshi, Bharti and 3 other accused from a Raebareli court to Lucknow for a joint trial in the demolition case. A special investigation team has been formed by the Uttar Pradesh police to probe the Saharanpur clashes. 10 inspectors will be part of the team that will be investigating as many as 40 cases registered between May 5th and 23rd in connection with the clashes. Saharanpur has been witnessing large-scale caste-based violence over the past few days. Over a dozen people have been injured, 2 killed and more than 60 homes burned down in clashes between the communities in the Shabirpur village. The formation of SIT comes a day after a PIL was filed in the Allahabad High Court demanding a judicial probe. The CBI will probe the controversial merger of the Air India and Indian Airlines under the former UPA government. It will also investigate the alleged irregularities in purchase and lease of aircraft by the 2 state-run carriers, which caused huge losses to the exchequer. The investigative agency has registered 3 FIRs and a preliminary inquiry, including surrender of profitable routes to favour private airlines. The cases have been registered against unidentified officials of Air India, Ministry of Civil Aviation and others under charges of criminal conspiracy, cheating and corruption. The allegations relate to purchase of 111 aircrafts for national airlines costing about 70,000 crore rupees to benefit foreign aircraft manufacturers. The CBI's action follows the Supreme Court's January 5th direction on a petition filed by the centre. The process for the merger was initiated by the then Civil Aviation Minister Praful Patel on March 16, 2006. Indian Airlines officially merged the Air India in April 2007. On to some more developments. Chemists across country will go on a nationwide strike today to protest against the stringent regulation on the sale of medicines. According to the All India Organization of Chemists and Druggists, the one-day strike has been called as several of their representations to the government opposing the regulations on the sale of medicines went neglected. The chemists are also opposing online pharmacy, which they say poses a threat to their business. As per reports, the chemist body is also likely to hold a demonstration to highlight their concerns. The situation in Kashmir remained peaceful on Monday as authorities continued curfew-like restrictions at a number of places in the valley on the second day. The fear of protest over the killing of Hizbul Mujahideen commander Sabzar Bhatt propelled the authorities to take precautionary measure. According to the police, there was a report about a stray incident of stone pelting on a CRPF camp in the area of South Kashmir's Pulwama district. Section 144 was imposed in central Kashmir for a second straight day. The shutdown was observed in Srinagar and its adjoining areas. 8 militants, including Hizbul Mujahideen terrorist Sabzar Ahmad Bhatt, were killed in separate encounters on Saturday. Separatist leaders were put under house arrest. Meanwhile, the National Investigation Agency questioned 3 Kashmiri separatists in connection with a case related to the terror funding and subversive activities in Jammu and Kashmir. And a look at what else is making news across the country nationwide. After an encounter with the security forces in Chhattisgarh's insurgency hit, 3 Naxals were arrested in Dantewada district. The trio were rounded up from Hiroli village forest during an anti-Mao operation. One person was killed and 4 others injured in a bomb blast at medical store in Dimapur in Nagaland on Monday evening. As per the eyewitness, 2 persons came in car and lobbed a bomb inside the shop. 1 customer died at the private hospital. Tagging and stamping of handbag in 6 more major airports, including Chennai and Thiruvananthapuram, will be a thing of past from June 1st. The other 4 airports where this facility is extended are Patna, Jaipur, Guwahati and Lucknow. And shifting our focus on the international front, at least 10 people were reportedly killed and more than 20 injured when a car bomb exploded in Baghdad's Garada district early Tuesday. According to the statement published on Twitter and Telegram by the group's media wing, Amaq, the Islamic State has claimed the responsibility for the attack. The statement said that ISIS targeted a gathering of Shiites. Interior Ministry spokesperson General Sadman said that the blast occurred outside an ice cream shop. The attack comes in the Islamic holy month of Ramadan, which began on Friday. French President Emmanuel Macron says he held a frank exchange with Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin in their first face-to-face talks. Macron hosted Putin at the 17th century palace of Versailles outside Paris. The talks went on for almost an hour longer than the schedule, after which both the leaders stressed they had agreed on the need to move forward on divisive issues such as Syria and Ukraine. Putin also said that he wanted to strengthen economic ties with France after the restrictions of recent years. It is noteworthy that France and Russia are backing opposing sides in Syria. The issue of Ukraine also came up during the talks, with President Putin calling for sanctions to be lifted, which were imposed after Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014.
Et l'éradication des groupements terroristes, et en particulier de Daesh. C'est le fil directeur de notre action en Syrie, et ce sur quoi je veux qu'au-delà du travail que nous conduisons dans le cadre de la coalition, nous puissions renforcer notre partenariat avec la Russie.
В ходе переговоров почувствовали, что многие вещи нами оцениваются примерно одинаково. Многие вещи мы оцениваем с одних и тех же позиций, хотя есть и некоторые расхождения.
And a look at what else is making news across the world in World Wrap. Nepal has postponed the second phase of local level election to ensure the participation of agitating Madhesi-based parties. This comes days after Madhesis threatened to launch a fresh agitation to block the polls, which are being held for the first time in 2 decades. The polls would now be held on 23rd of June instead of 14th June. A new image showing bomber Salman Abedi on the day he attacked Manchester Arena has been released by police. Officers are appealing for people who might have seen him carrying the blue suitcase between 18th and 22nd May. In all, 14 men are now being questioned in connection with the investigation into the attack. Pakistan's Supreme Court has dismissed the objections raised by Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's son against members of a team investigating the Sharif family's overseas business in connection with the Panama Papers case. Hussain Nawaz had appealed the apex court, urging it to remove 2 members of the 6-member joint investigation team. The court directed the JIT to continue the probe. Army Chief General Bipin Rawat, on a 4-day visit to Myanmar, met the country's leader Aung San Suu Kyi. He held talks with the top military leadership to boost defence and security cooperation between the two countries. Myanmar is one of India's strategic neighbours and shares a long border with a number of northeastern states, including militancy hit Nagaland and Manipur. And on to sports news. Sports Minister Vijay Goyal on Monday ruled out any possibility of a bilateral cricket match between India and Pakistan in the near future. This comes ahead of a meeting between BCCI and Pakistan Cricket Board officials in Dubai. Addressing the media on Monday, Vijay Goyal said that India cannot play any bilateral series with its northern neighbour as long as terror emanates from Pakistan. He further added that both terrorism and cricket cannot go hand in hand. The sports minister also added that Indian cricket body must talk to its government before proceeding with any proposal for any series with a neighbouring country. Over the last couple of years, there have been multiple efforts from the cricket board of both the countries to organize a cricket series between India and Pakistan, but political tensions have not allowed it.
पाकिस्तान के साथ जो भी मैचेस होंगे, मैं समझता हूं बीसीसीआई को पहले सरकार से बात करने के बाद ही किसी तरह का प्रस्ताव या प्रपोजल देनी चाहिए। मैंने पहले ही क्लियर किया था कि बायलैटरल जो हैं पाकिस्तान के साथ बहुत मुश्किल होंगे गेम्स, क्योंकि आतंकवाद, क्रॉस बॉर्डर टेररिज्म ये रहते हुए पाकिस्तान के साथ खेल के संबंध नहीं बनाए जा सकते। आतंकवाद और खेल साथ साथ नहीं चलेंगे।
And Rafael Nadal and Novak Djokovic have advanced to the second round of the 2017 French Open, beating respective first-round foes Benoit Paire and Marcel Granollers. After racing through the first set, things became a little sticky for Nadal. In the second, Paire led 3-1 and had chances to move 5-3 ahead but could not take them. He then called for the doctor at the start of the third set and the match was over within 2 hours. Nadal's fine streak of form continued with a 6-1, 6-4, 6-1 beating of home favourite Paire. Meanwhile, Novak Djokovic may have won his first round match against Marcel Granollers in easy straight set fashion, but it was the Spaniard who had the highlight reel shot of the second day of the French Open. But Djokovic easily made it through to a 6-3, 6-4, 6-2, beating the Spaniard Granollers. World number 1 and top-seeded Andy Murray will play his first round of the French Open on day 3 against Andrei Kuznetsova of Russia. Murray had a poor season with just 1 title in Dubai. His record this year has been 16-7 and on clay it hasn't been all that great, with dismal showings at Monte Carlo, Madrid and Rome. And that's all we have for you in this edition of Breakfast News. Keep watching Rajya Sabha television.